Secret Societies that Control the World Monetary System. Chapter 1. Ex-Dutch banker Ronald Bernard exposes the elite, Part 1,2,3, at YouTube channel Crusher 1980. Ronald Bernard exposes the elite 1. Ronald Bernard was an ex-Dutch banker working for the elite of this world, laundering their money. After he got invited to a child sacrifice, left and now exposes these people. Ronald was in the import/export business. You have to go to the exchange to trade through brokers. One of the brokers at some point saw that he was ambitious, asked him what his prime motive was. When Ronald said money, the broker offered him a job in the financial world. The broker had a place in the exchange market where he dealt in currency deposits, so he traded in assets to make money out of differences in interest rates. He also laundered money between countries. His mentor told him, if you can't put your conscience in the proverbial freezer, then don't get involved in this. If you want a lot of money, you can obtain that. I can help you, but it comes at a cost because you cannot do this with a clear conscience. Ronald was partially already used to doing that out of self-preservation, so to put his conscience in the freezer was not an impossible task, so it became a survival mechanism. His view of humanity and the world wasn't exactly positive. He got deeper into the financial world. It turns out the world is really small, and you keep noticing that it is just a small circle. Ronald Bernard exposes the elite too. The big global flow of money is a part of a large global financial system that operates in a shady part of the law. Official currency exchange transactions under the table take some skill. Ronald was able to move money in such a way as to make everything okay, so it would pass all regulatory bodies that are in place worldwide. This is the skill these global bankers had in controlling the world's money, to be able to move it around easily. They also made money by creating it out of nothing when they made loans, which is fractional reserve banking, and to manipulate certain markets so they could profit from them. For example, they can attack any national currency by doing certain things such that it will go up or down. They can short it or buy futures. The ultimate skill is the Bank for International Settlements, which rules the world as an autonomous authority untouched by any country. They have their own police force in Basel, Switzerland. No organization or country goes near them. They are all intimidated by this bank, which creates money out of nothing for all the central banks of the world. Almost no one understands this system. Almost everybody is afraid of it. The BIS's two UN stooges, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, are geared to go to needy nations and offer them money so they will be indebted to the point they can't pay it back. At this point, the elitists get to plunder their resources. This is the basic plan. Conquest of the world. Ronald Bernard got in by chance because he was recognized as an ambitious, greedy kind of guy. Along the way, they brought him to a satanic church which he attended but thought it was a joke for fun, until somebody took him aside and said, if you want to get ahead with us, you have to go all in and participate in a child sacrifice or child killing. He refused. They didn't kick him out immediately. They started giving him the cold shoulder. He wasn't the evil Luciferian type they thought he was. They eventually tortured him and threw him out. On retrospect, he thinks participation in a child sacrifice would have been the final way to control him. They would have videotaped the proceedings. The threat of having him on tape as part of a murder would have ensured that he would do what he was told from then on. He went to the hospital, healed, and decided to tell his story publicly. The essence is that a small group of satanic bankers control the world's money supply. They're trying to use it to take total control of the human race. Ronald talks about times when they plundered nations' currencies, causing depressions where they made money while many people suffered. They traded with nations that were officially boycotted. They bought and sold oil from nations that were not allowed to sell oil because they were considered enemies of America. He did money laundering between people all over the world. Everybody thinks there are opposites like good and bad guys in the world, but on the higher levels it is just a game where they are all working together. However, they have to stick to the rules and regulations they themselves have created to keep the rest of society suppressed and make sure that it will not be too crowded at the top, so you have to play by the official rules on face to make sure that nobody can trace you. Apart from the elite themselves, nobody in lower ranks can find out what is going on. It's compartmentalized. Everyone knows only his own little piece. Only the elite know what is happening in a global sense. Ronald was doing the dirty work, he was up near the people who run the entire world. It was hard work, but he was rich and treated as a big shot. He didn't know everything, but he knew a lot because his clients were banks who didn't want blood on their hands. Within those banks, there were always a number of people who knew what was going on. He was dealing with banks, governments, multinationals, secret services, and terrorist organizations. They were all connected by big money. The world banking system is basically a criminal organization, or more precisely several criminal organizations networking together for profit. They're making lots of money. Satanism is intertwined with this in some way. There seems to be evidence of child sacrifices which goes back to tribes in the Bible that worshipped Baal, an ancient Hebrew god. They supposedly eat children because the adrenaline of fear in the blood is supposedly the fountain of youth. This is about as much as any outsider knows. Ronald got a conscience. That was the end of him with those guys. Ronald said that in order to get into deep, you had to have a lifetime bonded around something evil. He thought the child sacrifice would have been a way to compromise him. Ronald Bernard exposes the Elite Three. Ronald was training to become a psychopath and failed. These people serve something immaterial that they call Lucifer. At first he took it as entertainment when he went to places called churches of Satan when they were doing their holy mass with naked women and liquor and stuff. He was a guest in those circles. It amused him. At some point he was invited to participate in sacrifices. He couldn't do it, whereupon they weeded him out. Ronald says he has done some research. There are witnesses besides him to this phenomena worldwide. In the Bible, you find references to these practices with Israelites. The reason the first 10 tribes were banished to Babylonia was because of these rituals with children. There is more to life than meets the eye. There is a whole invisible world of dark forces. Ronald says the book The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a guidebook for the way his network did business. There is a small group of Luciferian Satanist people with ultimate power in the world. This is an all-annihilating force that hates our guts, hates creation, hates life, and will do anything to destroy us completely. The way to do that is to divide humanity, divide and conquer. Humanity is a manifestation of light that is the true creation. As long as you divide them based on political parties, skin color, you name it, then you suppress them. People can overcome these evil people if they unite. Ronald had a near-death experience where left his body. This made him feel close to God. He started reading the Bible to cleanse himself. Ronald thinks there are about 8,500 of them ruling the world through the banking system. The BIS, or the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, is the headquarters of the banks and of the financial system. Every central bank is a member of the BIS, which is a civil organization, not a governmental one. They have created a bunch of rules which you can see on their website, bis.org. They have incorporated all these rules recognized worldwide. They have claimed their independence from Switzerland. Their grounds and headquarters are on our independent land. They are not a part of Switzerland. They have immunity. Nobody can touch them. They have their own police service. It's a fully recognized immune state beyond the grasp of any rules. This institute was also the location during World War I and before in which so-called enemies, the Nazis and the Allies, met up and traded gold. This headquarters maintains the monetary system as it ensures the amount of currency in the world. They do this by using the financial system under the central banks of the BIS. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank are 2 UN institutes that on face help countries in need. What they really do is create debt in these countries in such a way that they will never be able to pay it off. This allows them to get resources from poor countries. They also use the traditional economic hitman methods, the bullet or gold. The next layer would be the central banks, all civil organizations independent from government organizations, amongst which nowadays we have the Central Bank of Europe and the national banks. The City of London, Vatican City, and Washington, DC are free states at the same level as the BIS. The City of London determines the gold rate on a daily basis so they are able to fill people with money or empty them altogether. The Federal Reserve in America is a private central bank. Stock market centers are free states with immunity from everyone, part of the world monetary system. From there, multinationals and governments are lower levels of the monetary system than under that is the ordinary people who work for their money. We have accepted as normal the interest rate in our society. Money is created from the contract based on debt. You go to the bank and ask for a loan or a mortgage and you put your signature on it. The moment you do this, they create a debt on one side on your bank account and the credit on the other side. The credit goes to whatever you were trying to buy. The debt is yours from now on, so out of nowhere they digitally created money. That's how they create all the money in the world, based on debt plus the interest the bank earns from it. On the other side, the saver gets a few % interest on his savings, but the world bankers hedge that by constantly raising inflation so the value of money constantly goes down. The saver has a net gain of nothing. The bank system wins. The compound interest on all the loans they make by creating money out of nothing is the final blow in keeping the world, including governments, eternally poor and in debt. It's a joke in a way. We have all these rules and laws and organizations to ensure that people and governments pay their debts, but right now the US federal government debt is on the way to $40 trillion. You can see it at usdebtclock.org. They'll never pay that money back, but they have to keep the charade going because if it cracks, they got nothing. Ronald Bernard exposes the elite four. A wise person say, let's eliminate the Federal Reserve and create our own central bank through the Department of Treasury that gives the US government free money. If any smart person with power in the government ever figures that one out, they might be assassinated like JFK was when he started issuing money from the Department of Treasury. We're being ruled by a bunch of crooks who appointed themselves the leaders of the world money supply. They're creating money out of nothing because nobody has the guts to tell them to get lost. Misery is a business model of creating money out of nothing and lending it to people at compound interest. The more loans that are created, the more inflation there is, which means the purchasing power of money goes down. If you want to screw businesses and cause a depression, call in the loans and raise interest rates. They create all this money out of nothing while the people have to work hard to earn the money to pay it back. The tax system is citizens paying the loans and interest that governments owe to banks who create money out of nothing. Religious people used to be against usury, which is charging interest on the use of money, but that idea is long gone. These privately owned organizations have authority and protection. No one touches them. They serve the political system. There is another mechanism called the European Stability Mechanism, which helps move money around Europe without any regulations or accountability to government regulations. Ronald said they manipulate stock prices by creating medical scares which cause the stock prices of medical and drug companies to go up. Democracy is an illusion. You vote. It doesn't matter who gets in. Several years later, the politicians are making money through all the connections they made, but nothing improved in the country. Look at the election promises. No one says we need to completely change the economic, financial, monetary system, that we need to get rid of the central bank and banks as we know them currently. Most people and politicians do not understand the monetary system. In order to get true democratic representation, we have to get the people to create bills, then vote on them online. Create a bill to get rid of the private central bank. The government will create its own central bank and issue itself money. People will not pay income tax anymore. In order for the people to succeed, they need to unite. Get into the mainstream media and or create their own media. Must have money to overthrow the criminals in power to take it as a group of people. Need connections to get into the mainstream. For now, we're living in this matrix controlled by banks who create money out of nothing and lend it to governments, so at the very least, even if a citizen does not borrow money, they still have to pay taxes. If high-level people who work at banks are sacrificing children, they must have some belief that this Satanism thing is real. Ronald ends his talk warning about child abuse everywhere. It's not just child sacrifices. There is child abuse, child sexual abuse and organ harvesting. Ronald says he knew some nurses who went to India and witnessed people taking the organs out of babies and children who were still alive when the organs were removed. Elitists use these organs for their health. It's called organ trafficking. They cannot destroy unconditional love. We can unite in unconditional love. The evil people are deficient. They can be defeated. There are only about 8,500 of them. By themselves they are weak, insecure, and scared of being exposed for who they really are. They're using drugs and alcohol. They have no real love or true friends. These are people you might see at the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, or in any financial district like Wall Street. They don't look invincible. Ronald Bernard, Satanic Banker Resources. Ronald Bernard has a YouTube channel called Ronald Bernard. youtube.com/@RonaldBernard. Ex-Dutch banker Ronald Bernard exposes the elite, Part 1,2,3. YouTube channel Crusher 1980. Ronald Bernard censored by YouTube. rumble.com/c/c-3194718. Ronald Bernard FMR. Dutch banker, ITNJ seating. International Tribunal for Natural Justice. Some of his videos translated from Dutch are at the YouTube channel Open Your Eyes. unitedpeople-foundatation.org